Shalom, everyone. This video is going to be an advanced introduction into proving the ancient art and science of astrology as it is indicated in the Bible. And I would also like to begin by pointing out that the Bible not only contains but encodes all of the knowledge, art, and science and wisdom of astrology within the Holy Scriptures. And so, in this video, this video is just designed to give a very high level overview and general overview of astrology in the Bible. I could very clearly, expand this video to be extremely long. Um, you know. Uh, Extending the knowledge and wisdom that I present in this video. And in fact, books could be written upon this subject. But the purpose of this video is only to provide a short, advanced introduction into this matter. I begin by speaking on one of the most important foundational concepts in astrology, which pertains to the knowledge of the divinity of the heavens, that essentially the heavens are divine and everything contained within the heavens is divine. And we find our first proof of this, which is actually a Kabbalistic proof, in Sefer Bereshit, chapter 1, verse 17, where here I give a very esoteric, mystical interpretation of the verse. Now, the literal interpretation of the verse is that in the previous verse, it's talking about the setting of the sun and the moon in the firmament, and then it proceeds by saying that Elohim placed them, in reference to the sun and the moon, and the luminaries in the firmament of the heavens. However, when we read this verse in the Hebrew hyperliterally, we Kabbalists may also read it as, and he, in reference to Ha Elohim, set these Elohim, that is duly note with a small e, in the firmament of the heavens. These Elohim, of course, being in reference to the previous verse vis-a-vis the sun, the moon, and the luminaries. In other words, on a Kabbalistic mystical level, the verse is telling us that these entities in the heavens, these luminaries, are indeed Elohim. And with a small e, the emphasis is to be put on the small e in Elohim. These are not Ha Elohim. These are Elohim with the small e. So even though they are not Ha Elohim, they are still nevertheless divine. Now, the next verse is to be found in Sefer Eob, chapter 25, verse 5, where it says, "Behold, he instructs the moon, and it does not shine. The stars are not pure before him." So again, this is a very Kabbalistic verse, just on the literal interpretation, because here we learn that it is Ha Elohim that supersedes the luminaries and actually instructs them. Right? In this case, it says that he instructs the moon, and based on his instructions, the moon either shines or it does not shine, letting us know the mystery and force and power behind the phenomenon of the luminaries. In this case, the waxing and waning of the moon. And then it says, very mystically, it says, the stars are not pure before him. You must ask, well, what does this mean that the stars are not pure before him? Well, again, another foundational principle in astrology is that quintessentially the heavens are binary, meaning that they contain both evil and beneficent luminaries. So this, of course, would be in reference to the malefic planets, which, again, to give a further disquisition on this matter would be to go beyond the scope of this video, but all that needs to be known is that there are what are considered beneficent and malefic luminaries within the heavens, and this is what this is in reference to. The next verse is, again, on the same level as the previous verse, which is found in Sefer Yeshayahu, chapter 45, verse 12, where it says, "I command all the stars," in reference to Ha Elohim, again, signifying that it is Ha Elohim who supersedes and transcends these Elohim, meaning that there is an Elohim behind these Elohim, and this Elohim, or these Elohim, are greater than these Elohim, and these Elohim are, of course, Ha Elohim, who command all of these stars. Another verse is again, another very mystical and Kabbalistic verse found in Sefer Shoftim, chapter 5, verse 20, where it says, the stars fought from the heavens, from their courses or orbits, they fought against Shisara. We have to ask, well, who is Shishara? And why are these stars fighting? What is exactly going on in the heavens? Again, we need to understand that there are Elohim in the heavens. These are very powerful, divine, living entities. And astrology is all about the knowledge and wisdom of these entities and understanding these entities and their essence. Again, to fully explain all of the esoteric, Kabbalistic, and mystical and astrological significance behind this verse would go way beyond the scope of this video, because this is one of the most astrological and Kabbalistic verses in the Bible. Moving on to, but the point of this verse, though, in displaying this verse, is to show that indeed the heavens are the habitation of Elohim. Now, moving on to the next verse, which is found in, I forgot to put the citation here, but it's found in Sefer Devarim. I believe it's chapter 4, verse 19. Yes. So we find in Sefer Devarim, chapter 4, verse 4:19, it says, and do not, when you look up at the heavens and see the sun and the moon and the stars, even any ornament of the heavens, be led astray and worship them and serve them. These things, that is in reference to these Elohim, Adonai, the Elohim of Ye, has allotted to all of the Goyim beneath the heavens. This is very important because, as we said before in the previous verses, we are learning that it is Ha Elohim that controls and commands these lesser Elohim, which are the luminaries, right? So basically, these lesser Elohim are servants. They are messengers of Ha Elohim. And they do his bidding. They do his lower work here on earth or in the heavens, and as to what pertains to earth. So when the Goyim see the entire array and influence of these Elohim, upon the earth, they then look upon these luminaries as Elohim, not with the small e, but with a big E, and then begin to worship them because they see what a grand influence they have here on earth. But again, as divine and as powerful as they are, as a great strong influence as they have here on earth, they are not the highest Elohim. And that's what we learn from these divine scriptures in the word of Elohim, or Ha Elohim. And so what Adonai is saying in the Torah here is, he is saying these lesser Elohim, because they are Elohim, but these lesser Elohim I have allotted to the Goyim. They are the Elohim of the Goyim. The Goyim worship them, and that's fine. That's their Elohim. But for you, Yisrael, who are my sons, who are the holy chosen ones, who are the only ones that can be called true sons of Ha Elohim, you are not to worship these luminaries, these Elohim with the small e. You are to worship Ha Elohim, the highest Elohim, which is me, Elohei Yisrael. And so that is what he is saying here in this verse, because he's saying the same thing to the Yisraelim. He's saying, just like the Goyim, you look up to the heavens and you see how divine these Elohim are and how powerful they are and what a strong, powerful influence they exert here upon earth on a very holistic and comprehensive level. Nevertheless, you should know better, because I am your heavenly Father, that I run the whole show. I run these Elohim. They serve me. So you come and worship me, the source. As for the Goyim, they are to worship these Elohim because they are there. That is who rules them. Okay, so moving on to another verse, we read in Sefer Amos chapter 5, verse 26, where it says, where Adonai is saying, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch and Kiyun, which is the planet Saturn in ancient Hebrew, the star of the Elohim of ye, the images which you made for ye. Now, here in context, Adonai is making reference to when the Israelites were in the wilderness outside of Egypt. And he's basically saying that when there were many Israelites when they were in the wilderness that weren't even serving Ha-Elohim. A good majority of them actually were serving Moloch and Kiyun, the planet Saturn, which is the highest star, in the heavens. And so that's what they were doing, and it's very, very evil. They were basically mimicking what the Goyim were doing, because it's the Goyim that were worshiping Kiyun, which is Saturn, one of the luminaries in the heavens, and Moloch. So here we have another verse that explicitly tells us that, yes, indeed, these luminaries, these stars or planets are gods. The Goyim are worshiping them as Elohim has allotted to them. And here he's reprimanding very severely and harshly the Yisraelim that were worshiping like the Goyim were in the wilderness. Now, it is for this reason, based on everything that has now been said, that Sefer HaZohar in Book 3, Folio 68a, it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu animated every part of the firmament with a separate spirit. In other words, all of existence is animated with spirit. And this is one of the first basic principles of HaKabbalah. And so, essentially, part of this spiritual animation, a subset of it is, of course, the heavens and all of the luminaries contained within it. So now we move on to speak on mundane astrology in the Bible. And so mundane astrology is concerned with the macro influence of the heavens upon earth, which indeed is true. Now we read in Sefer Tehillim chapter 19 verse 1, where it states, the heavens declare the divine glory, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. Now we need to ask in the second part of the verse where it says, day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. It is a very basic ancient Israeli hermeneutical principle that this sentence pertains to the previous verse. In other words, the first sentence modifies the subsequent sentence. It's just a very basic ancient Israeli hermeneutical principle that if you are initiated into the ancient Israeli, art and science of divine exegesis, then you would know this. Nevertheless, because now we know that this verse is being this sentence is being modified by the previous sentence, then we know that when it says that day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge, this of course is in reference to the heavens. So it says the heavens declare divine glory. Of course they do. The heavens declare the divine glory of Ha-Elohim and all of his creation. And the firmament showeth his handiwork. This is of course, should be something considered very basic to a child of Elohim. Now, what's interesting is the next sentence, which says that day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. Night unto night showeth knowledge pertains to the luminaries in the night sky, which is what astrologers are mapping and studying. And so that's what the verse is saying there, saying that if you know how to map and read the heavens, then you will be able to learn the knowledge contained therein. And day unto day uttered speech, because the luminaries are still active in the daytime, even if you cannot see most of them in the sky. And so they are still active, whether it's day or night, whether you can see them or you can't. And so that's the whole point of the sentence, that whether it's day or night, they still exist up in the heavens, whether you can see them or not. Their existence, their actions are independent of whether you can see them in the heavens or not. And so in the day, they are concerned with certain activities and actions, and in the night, they are concerned with other activities and actions. And if you are a true initiated astrologer at the highest level, you would then be able to, hear this speech in the daytime and study or know this knowledge in the nighttime. Now we proceed to the next verse in Sefer Eyob, chapter 22, verses 12 to 14, where it says, "Is Elo not the height of the heavens? And behold, the chief of the stars that are exalted, and he walketh in the circle of the heavens, which is the zodiac." Here again, we have another force that reinforces the previous verses that I just discussed and demonstrated, where here we find that Elo has his hand and his influence in the luminaries in the heavens. In other words, he runs them, he controls them. It says he is the chief of all of the stars, meaning he is the master of all of the stars. He runs and he controls all of the stars. They do his bidding. And then it says that he's the height of the heavens, meaning that he transcends the heavens. He's above the heavens. And then it says he walketh in the circle of the heavens, which is the zodiac. He walketh the zodiac. He controls the zodiac, which are the 12 constellations, which are also gods. So what we have here is that it needs to be understood that there is a hierarchy here with respect to the influence that is exerted here upon earth. In essence, it is Ha Elohim that runs and controls the entire universe, but he has intermediaries that do his bidding. So between Ha Elohim and the earth exists the heavens and the luminaries, which are the intermediary by which Ha Elohim exerts his dominion and influence and control over earth. Now, the proof of this then is in the next verse in the same book, in chapter 38, verse 33, where it says, "Do you know the decrees of the heavens? Can you set the dominion thereof in the earth?" Again, the heavens have decrees because they exert influence here upon earth. These are the decrees of the heavens. The decrees of the heavens are their exertion of influence here upon earth. It says, "Can you set the dominion thereof in the earth?" The dominion in reference to the heavens. It is the heavens that have dominion over the earth. They run the earth. They control the earth and what goes on here on the earth. Okay, that's why they are called Elohim. And so the book is asking, do you know the decrees of the heavens? Can you set the dominion thereof in the earth? And the first question, it is a taunt to stupid, ignorant Yisraelim and Goyim who do not know the decrees of the heavens, because this is very special divine knowledge and wisdom reserved only for the elect and those who are initiated into the holy mysteries, and for chief astrologers that work in the royal courts. Can you set the dominion thereof on earth? No, no one can. Only divine human beings who are Elohim in the flesh, like Yeshua and our patriarchs, etc. Then we find in another verse in Sefer Yeshayahu, chapter 34, verse 4, it says, "And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll." This is a very important verse because here the heavens are being equated or likened to a scroll. Well, what does a scroll contain? A scroll contains writing, letters that contain knowledge and wisdom. Likewise, the heavens can be thought of as a scroll. They contain writing, they contain letters. The stars, the luminaries, those are the letters. That's the writing. The pictures, the signs in the heavens, those are letters. The ancient Hebrew word for letter is the same as the Hebrew word for sign. In other words, there's an equation between sign and letter. The constellations, they are signs. They are pictograms, which are signs, which are letters. The stars are dots. When you connect them in a certain way, you get letters. The heavens are essentially a divine scroll. And it is chief astrologers who are initiated into this divine art and science that can then read this divine scroll, which is the heavens. And a Kabbalistic interpretation of this verse, if you were to know Hebrew and were fluent in ancient Hebrew, you would know that the root word where this word nagolu comes from is from the root word gala in Hebrew, which not only can signify roll, but can also signify reveal. So with that in mind, you can then also Kabbalistically read this verse as, "And the heavens shall reveal like a scroll." So these are the two. So the second interpretation here is a very valid interpretation. I mean, I wouldn't even say that it's a Kabbalistic mystical interpretation, because actually both interpretations are essentially are basically can be thought of as equal interpretations, because Again, every word in Hebrew is polysemous, so it just depends on how you how you want to read the word, utilizing its many significations. Moving on to now discussing natal astrology, which again is a very esoteric primeval art and science that has been mostly lost to antiquity. I'm fully aware that for the past 2,000 years, the vast majority of astrologers are preeminently concerned with natal astrology, but again, this has been an art and science that has been mostly lost to antiquity, and that is not fully understood by the vast majority, if not all, of modern day astrologers as they have existed in the past 2,000 years. And it's not well. I guess I'll just stop there, but we'll give a couple of proofs here of natal astrology as it is found in the Word. And the first one is found in Sefer Breshit, chapter 15, verse 5, where it reads, "And he," in reference to Elohim, "brought him," that is Abraham, "outside and said, Look now towards the heavens, lesofer, the stars, if you are able to lesofer them. And he said to him, So shall thy seed be." Now, the literal interpretation, or one of the literal interpretations of this verse, is that the word sefer, or in this case sofer, in this verse, has many meanings, right? Because every Hebrew word is polysemous, and at the very least has seven valid interpretations. Now, one such interpretation is in reference to number or counting, because the word sephar can also mean number or counting. So the literal interpretation given in most Bibles would be, "Look now towards the heavens and count the stars if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So shall thy seed be." But there are much more deeper Kabbalistic layers and levels going on in this verse. One of them being is the astrological, mystical interpretation of this verse, is that when you understand that the word sofer also can signify scroll, which can also signify reading, because reading is associated with scrolls. So now we can read the verse on a much more deeper mystical level as, "And he brought him outside and said, Look now towards the heavens and read the stars if you are able to read them." And then he says to him, "So shall thy seed be." So here, on an astrological interpretation, he's actually telling Abraham, read the stars. If you can. If you can you read them? Of course, it's a rhetorical question, because he already knows that Abraham descends from Chaldea, or Babylon, and Babylon and Chaldea was the chief nation, the chief ruling nation in terms of astrology and astronomy. In other words, that nation was the seat of the chief astrologers and astronomers. It was known to be, astrologically and astronomically speaking, the most advanced nation in the entire world at that time. And Abraham was from that nation, meaning that he was well-schooled and taught and initiated into astrology and astronomy at the highest levels, coming out of Chaldea. So when you read ancient Kabbalistic treatises that are giving Kabbalistic interpretations of Adonai telling Abraham to leave Chaldea, right? This is a parable. This is encoded. This is an encoded statement. So what it's really going on here is that when Adonai tells Abraham, "You are to leave Babylon and Chaldea," on one level of Kabbalistic or Telestic exegesis, it is representing that Adonai telling Abraham, "You need to come out of your preoccupation and your obsession with astrology as it is understood and taught in Chaldea or Babylon." Because although the Chaldeans and Babylonians were very advanced in astronomy and astrology, they also at the same time were worshiping the heavens and the luminaries contained there within. And they were also concerned to a large extent with natal astrology in a very spurious manner. And so when Adonai is telling Abraham to come out of Chaldea, what this signifies on a very telistic level is him telling Abraham, you need to leave these spurious these spurious horoscopic astrology and these spurious doctrines, some certain spurious doctrines that are taught and believed in astrology there in Chaldea, and most especially the worship of these luminaries in the heavens. So principally, this is what Adonai's. This is principally what it This is the principal interpretation of this, or one of the principal telistic interpretations of this command of Adonai to Abraham when he tells him to leave Chaldea. He's not telling him you need to leave the entire study, knowledge, and wisdom of astrology and astronomy. You need to leave it all behind. No, he's not telling him that. He's just saying, listen, the nation is also principally known for certain spurious obsessions, within astrology, and it is these spurious doctrines and this spurious knowledge that to some extent is being harbored in Chaldea that you need to come out of. And the most important thing of all, the most important association is the worship of the stars and the constellations, etc., in the heavens that the Chaldeans, worship. So that's what that represents there. This is very critical to understand, because if you extend this interpretation to include, a complete dismissal of all astrology and astronomy, by Adonai to Abraham, then you have already erred big time. So very important to understand. So again, going back to this verse, when he says, read the stars, if you can read them, and then he said to him, so shall thy seed be. This is a cryptic statement saying that once Abraham has correctly read the stars as pertains to mundane astrology and even natal astrology, now that Adonai knows that Abraham can read them and has read them, he then confirms Abraham's understanding by saying, so shall thy seed be. It's an esoteric confirmation saying the verse is not going to explicitly fully give you the entire conversation between Adonai and Abraham, where Adonai is fully telling him everything that he understands as he's reading the heavens, but it's just a small cryptic statement saying, yes, Abraham read the stars correctly, and Adonai is basically telling him everything you've read in the stars concerning your seed and what's going to happen to your seed, yeah, so shall it be. Okay, that's the Kabbalistic valid interpretation of this verse. Very deep, very telistic, and absolutely very astrological in nature. Now, another example is found in Sefer Matityahu, chapter 2, verses 1 to 2, where it reads, the Magi came from the east, and that is, of course, Babylon and Persia, which was the seat of the chief, most initiated Kabbalist, I should say Israeli or Jewish Kabbalists, and astrologers and sages. They were all that the Babylon and Persia was the seat of the most initiated Kabbalists, Jewish Kabbalists, and Jewish astrologers for thousands of years. And these Magi who are coming over to Jerusalem are nothing more than Israelites and Yehudim who are in exile abroad. Okay, these are chief Kabbalists and astrologers that were initiated by people like Daniel, right, who was the chief magician of Babylon. Okay, so they're coming from the mystery schools of the chief Jewish Kabbalists and astrologers, of which Daniel was one of the founders and forerunners, because as the word explicitly states, he was the chief of all of the magicians of Persia and Babylon, and you better believe that he was initiating other Jews and Israelis to take his place and succeed him, and to make sure that this school succeeded throughout the generations. And of course it did, all the way up to the time of Yeshua. Now, it then says, they came to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born king of the Yehudim? For we have seen a star in the east and are come to worship him. Again, here we have a star in the heavens that pertains astrologically to a divine being here on earth, or just a being here on earth, in this case to Mashiach. And so if Yeshua or Mashiach is the archetype, he is the archetype of all Yisraelim, being their father, And so if the archetype has a star that pertains to him and associates with him, then it logically follows that so it is the case with all of his images or sons. Of course, as I have already stated previously, the art and science of natal astrology has, for the most part, been lost to antiquity. And again, with more emphasis, I also state that it is a very, very divine branch of divine knowledge and wisdom, to say the least. As an example, how the hell are you supposed to know or going to know what star pertains to you? Of course, given the fact that you are, Israeli, because if you're not, then this does not pertain to you. Now, moving on to another important verse that I think is very critical to reconcile here, again, due to the massive stupidity and ignorance of Christians, is found in Sefer Yeshayahu chapter 47, verse 13, where it states, "You have become weary with your counsels. Let the astrologers of the heavens, those who look at the stars, let them declare to you what is about to come upon you. See, they will all be burned." Now, this verse is not Adonai saying that, oh, astrology is bad, astrologers are bad. No, I've already proved through many verses that this is not the case. If you interpret this verse this way, as do most Christians, you are stupid, you are ignorant, you have displayed your diapers, okay? You don't know Adonai, you don't hear his voice, and you don't know your Father, you don't know your Heavenly Father, and you don't know Adonai very well. You really don't. You're still a little baby, okay? You're still a little spiritual baby that can't hear the Father very well, can't understand the Father, okay? What this verse is saying is that, yes, the chief astrologers that work in the royal courts were very successful and very good at their profession, which was predicting the future, as it pertains to the luminaries, okay, which dictate conditions here on Earth. Because if I go back to this slide here on mundane astrology, we can read that the Septuagint's rendition of the of chapter 38, verse 33 in Sefer Eob is, "And do you know the heavens changes and the corresponding events under the heavens?" Indicating that the heavens are indeed responsible for conditions here on Earth. If you know how to if you were initiated at the highest levels of astrology, you would be able to predict famines, economic collapses, wars, etc. Because macro events here on Earth are determined by the luminaries in the heavens. Okay? So what this verse is saying then is that, yes, the astrologers knew this art and science very well, and they were able to predict events, but they don't have the power to stop these events. He's saying, yes, listen, as this oracle is concerned, your chief astrologers have correctly predicted the future. They know what's coming. But now, as exalted and as proud as they may be because of this, go and ask them if they can stop the future. They can change the future. They can't. They have told you what's going to happen, and judgment is going to happen. It's going to come upon your nation very soon. But they can't stop it. And that's what he's saying in the verse. He's saying, let them declare to you what is about to come upon you, because they know what's going to come upon you. They know what's coming. But they, like you, are going to be burned. They're going to be judged along with everyone else. They can't stop. Just because you can know the future and read the future doesn't mean you can stop it or change it. And they can't. And since some of these astrologers worship these luminaries in the heavens, they're goyim. And so they're going to be judged along with their contemporaries and their counterparts and their fellow citizens of their nation as well. Now we proceed to transcend what I have just demonstrated thus far, namely the grandiloquent theosophy, philosophy, and divine wisdom. That is the Theosophy of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, which transcends astrology. And this is as it is written, "Behold, he instructs the moon, and it does not shine," which is found in Sefer Eob chapter 25, verse 5, "And I command all the stars." Sefer Yeshayahu, chapter 45, verse 12, right? So we Israelis, holy saints, who are fully initiated into the holy mysteries, we go to the source. We go to the source of power, the true source of power, which is Ha-Elohim. Elohei Yisrael, Elohei Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. We go to the source. And the source is Ha-Elohim. He runs the whole show. We understand that the heavens and the luminaries are just an intermediary and thus inferior to their source, which is the source, the principle, which is Ha-Elohim. And so, although we Israeli magicians, such as myself, who am the chief magician of Mystery Babylon, as well as the chief sage, although we are initiated into astrology, we trump those who are sole astrologers. And this is as it is written in Sefer Bamidbar, chapter 23, verse 23, where it says, "Behold, for there is no enchantment against Yaakov, and there is no black magic or forbidden divination in Israel. At the appointed time, he will tell Yaakov and Israel what El will do." Now, what I have just provided and explained here is one of the most telistic, mystical, and esoteric interpretations of this verse that you probably are not going to be able to find in any Bible. You will only know this if you are fluent in ancient Hebrew, as I am. Now, this is another level of mysticism upon this verse, is that it says, at the appointed time, he will tell Yaakov and Israel what El will do. He and El? Well, here we have two Elohim referenced. We have a lower El, which is El, and then we have some sort of El that is above this El, he. So we have two gods that are being referenced here in this verse, because it says, he will tell Yaakov and Israel what El will do, unless God is speaking of himself in the third person differently at the same time, which just is, again, very mystical. So it's just a very, very all in all, just that part alone, he will tell Yaakov and Israel what El will do. It's just in of itself very mystical. It is already speaking to the plurality of the Godhead and of divinity. But nevertheless, what is to be emphatically understood about this verse is that what makes us holy saints special and chosen is that he tells us what he's going to do, right? So we can bypass his intermediaries and his servants, right? He tells his servants and his messengers, in this case the heavens and the luminaries, what to do, and how to do it, etc. Right? So he may tell certain constellations and certain planets, okay, I'm preparing to go to have a great war on the world happen between, say, 10 nations, right? And he'll tell the heavens and the luminaries, a great war between 10 great nations upon earth is about to take place. Go and write these decrees in the heavens to let the chief astrologers know what's about to take place, and go and conduct your courses as such to create this event upon earth, right? And then it happens, right? I, as a chief holy saint, fully initiated into the holy mysteries, as a true Israelite, I don't need to go to the heavens and read the heavens to see and know and understand that this great war is about to happen. Why? Because El will tell me. He will tell me before he even tells the luminaries in the heavens what's about to happen. He might manipulate the heavens in such a way as to first indicate in the heavens that it's not going to take place, only to later then indicate that it's going to take place, thus even confusing the astrologers. That's how much great power Elohim has. What makes me special as the chief magician of Mystery Babylon in Israel is that since I have such a close relationship with Elohim, since I am his chosen son, and since I hear his voice, he will tell me what's going to happen. He does tell me what is going to happen in the future. So that I don't necessarily need to read the heavens, although I can and I do monitor the heavens and the signs in the heavens to know what's going to happen and this of the sort. But I don't necessarily need to do so, and that's what makes it special. And this is what even most Jews don't understand, especially the pseudo-Kabbalists, the pseudo-Jewish Kabbalists, of which there are many, don't even understand this. I don't even think they even are aware of this special, understanding of this verse that I just cited. Nevertheless, for this reason, it is also written in Talmud Bavli, Tractate Shabbat, folio 156a, there is no mazal, that is, celestial influx or astrological influence over Israel. Because they are not our Elohim. We do not worship them. We worship the source, the principle, Ha-Elohim. We keep the divine law, which is the Torah, his divine law. And it is for this reason that there is no mazal over Israel. This is what makes us special. There is no astrological influence over us. And hence why we are not concerned with many branches of astrology, especially horoscopic astrology or horary astrology, etc. We're not concerned with these other branches of astrology because they have no control or influence over us. We are Israel, as it is written in HaTorah. Ye are the sons of Adonai Elohim. I am his son, a son of the king, prince of the Jews. Amen.